Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. The role of a DM is a powerful one. Everything you say or do directly affects the entire world for anywhere between 2 to 8 whole people. Power trips aren't limited to the DM either. High-level D&D players wield infinite cosmic power to create or destroy at their own leisure. The power wielded by members of the D&D hobby must be infinite. Or are they? See, no matter how incredible your godlike storytelling skills as a DM are, or how skillfully you bend the fabric of reality as a wizard, it's important to remember one teeny tiny little detail. You're still a f***ing nerd playing the equivalent of adult make-believe. However, this little slice of humble pie isn't digestible by everyone who plays D&D, as evidenced by the story I have for you today. Today's story stars a DM with a god complex, who goes on to become a player who thinks that they're the main character. Trust me, by the end of this one, you'll realize that this man is a narcissist on an entirely different level. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG-Horror-Stories. Enjoy. This story is titled, When a God Complex Meets Main Character Syndrome. Problem DM turns into problem player, and somehow becomes even worse. Oh boy, where to begin with this one? Sorry for the length, but this tale takes quite a few turns. So my circle had, a friend who was stuck as a forever DM. He's a decently creative guy, comes up with some clever encounters and puzzles, uses character backstories in unique ways, so no one complained too much. Though he's always rubbed a few people the wrong way and started a few small fights due to poor phrasing and selective interpretation of the rules. Nothing game-ruining, but to set the scene, he's been on people's nerves for a while. I should probably also specify that he's terminally ill, so he maybe gets a bit more leeway than he otherwise would. More on that later. So one of his campaigns has been on the verge of implosion for a while. He's had it out for one player, we'll call her Druid, for months. At one point he presented what looked like an open-ended puzzle, but shut down every creative solution that we could think of, debuffing and punishing players for everything we tried. So for the next puzzle, we stayed in the hallway and cast a bunch of spells to scope it out, test the wards, etc., etc. And he flipped his lid because we were being cowards, and lazy, and unoriginal, and wouldn't go into the room. One player, the Barbarian, quit over the abuse, and the DM was convinced it was for the better, because this player was only happy if we were fighting. And he wanted to run a more puzzle-heavy session. Meanwhile, I've dipped my toes into DMing. And he wants to be one of my players to give himself a reprieve from DMing. It's been fun, but he has major main character syndrome, and none of the other players are able to actually do much or move the narrative forward. He's doing his damnedest to derail the plot at every possible juncture, and to overpower any other player's ideas. Every single one of my players is having issues with him. When I tried talking to him about it, he just deflected by saying, "They aren't doing anything. If I didn't take charge, the campaign would never go anywhere." Okay, this problem player is now being portrayed by Lumpy Space Princess, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop me. So finally, I started implementing more consequences for his actions, and repeatedly punished his character for the stupid things he would do in character. He argues that, "I'm picking on him too much," but he's the only one doing dumb stuff, so he's the only one facing these consequences. Actions have consequences, I tell him. Anyway, the next puzzle at his session had a giant chasm with some sort of gravity well mechanic. We tried a bunch of tools and spells to cross it, grab the MacGuffin, and return safely. The druid managed to dexterously cross a rope to get to the MacGuffin. We had already been in this dungeon for like 3 hours, doing nothing but solving tedious puzzles, and no one was having fun anymore. The druid has a massive bonus to dexterity, and asked if she could just skip to crossing back across the chasm in the interest of time. But the DM insists that she rolls multiple times and roleplays for it. Bored, the druid just jumps off the cliff with a rope tied around her waist, so the rest of the party can pull her up. The DM rules that because of the gravity effect, despite her casting Slow Fall, this broke her spine and paralyzed her forever, and no mages in the world could fix it. He then repeats those fateful words to me: "Actions have consequences." Oh no. Okay, so one of the first lessons that new DMs learn is that player actions are supposed to have consequences. The second lesson is to learn how to balance the severity of those consequences. For example, let's say the party's rogue steals a holy artifact from a temple of Bahamut. The clerics inside might get pretty upset and might even call the guards. That is a fair reaction. But if f***ing Bahamut himself comes down from the sky to personally suplex the rogue directly into the 9th layer of hell, well, let's just say I wouldn't really blame the rogue for not showing up at the next session. Look, the method is called the carrot and the stick, not the carrot and the thermonuclear warhead. Some self-restraint, please. There's actually a method that I like to use as a DM that I like to call the going, gone technique. If a player is eyeing up doing something that's gonna instantly kill or cripple their character, I ask for both them and one other player to perform a relevant skill check for them to evaluate the danger that they're putting themselves in. That's going number 1. If that fails, I ask them one last time, "Are you sure?" That's going number 2. The next step is gone, and that one is pretty self-explanatory.
Off to hang myself, off and left!
Time to roll up a new character. A few more similar events transpire in that session and the next, the details of which I won't bore you with. But at the end of the day, everyone in the party is fed up with him. We decide to just call it there. I'm still friends with him for the time being, and somewhat having fun and wanting a campaign to play in besides the one I'm DMing. So I stupidly agreed to migrate my character to his other campaign. The first thing he has our party do is brutally kill off the rest of my former party as a face roll boss fight, followed by a character performing an autopsy on the druid to reveal that she had a brain tumor, which is why she was acting so, quote, retarded. His words, not mine. So that was in pretty poor taste. But I wanted to keep playing with my friends, so I kept showing up. Some events that transpired in the next session included: I summoned 20 gallons of water to put out a fire. The DM ruled that it flooded the entire library that we were in. That's enough to fill a medium-sized fish tank for reference. He had previously explained that we could see a staircase down, so I protested that it would have drained down the stairs, even ignoring the part where it wasn't remotely enough water to fill the enormous room. He said that the staircase, which was previously in full view, was actually covered with a trap door, with a solid enough seal as to not drain the water. He argued that our paladin was metagaming by using a reaction to impose disadvantage on an advantage attack, because in character she wouldn't know that it was rolled with advantage. The next session was my turn to DM. The apparent big bad evil guy gave the party a chance to join him. Now, Lumpy Space Princess's character had already been viewed as highly suspect by the rest of the party, for a number of reasons both real and imagined, both in character and personally. His character decided to feign alliance to the boss, then tried to betray him to backstab him. The villain had a time stop ability, and paused time to evade and counter his attack, then returned to his original position. So from our ranger's perspective, all she saw was a guy walk up to the big bad evil guy, pledge allegiance to him, and then drop to one knee, because she never saw the attack that caused him to fall. So in character, she decided that obviously she would 100% believe that he was betraying all of the party, and shot him. And naturally she rolled a nat 20, which downs him instantly. She then also points out, "I don't want to be a dick. I'm not trying to be meta too much, but I just want to warn you, if my character saw anyone heal him, she'd assume that they were betraying the party too and might shoot them too." I'm torn on this, because honestly, 100% she's right. That's exactly how it would look. But at the time, it sucked for the players to be told, "Oh, one of you is down for the fight and the rest of you can't save him, haha." Now, if it was anyone else, I probably would have protested or hand-waved some excuse. But this player had been causing problems for long enough that it was... I'm not proud of it, but it was satisfying to see it happen there. And I allowed it. The party killed the boss and stabilized the warlock. I figure, hey, here's his chance to explain himself and figure out how to patch up relations between the characters. But no. He leaps to his feet and starts yelling, "Where's my knife? Where's my dagger?" Which, in his mind, would prove that he was trying to stab the villain in the back. But to the party, it looked like he was trying to avenge his new master. Honestly, I was proud of them for not metagaming and allowing for the possibility that the party wouldn't always get along and forgive each other just because the players were friends. And the weird thing is, the problem player said that he wasn't mad. That he totally understood why the ranger would have reacted that way. We stopped there for the night, and my phone soon blew up with an essay about how his character was going to devote his entire life to killing the ranger now, even if he had to become the new Grim Reaper himself to do so. Long story short, too late I know, Death took a vacation. Anyway, while all of this is happening, there's even more drama happening in the original crew that he had DM'd for. The one with Druid. You see, they were all originally from a Destiny 2 clan, and he had been bragging in their Discord about a bunch of extremely prestigious accomplishments, complete with screenshots. One screenshot included his opponent's Twitch name, and sure enough, typing in that returned a video of the streamer losing to some of the most blatant hacking and cheating imaginable. So they banned the player from the clan and server naturally. At this point, he is absolutely losing it, and is accusing our barbarian of hacking his account to make him look bad, because they shared passwords for D&D Beyond a while back. He's claiming that the barbarian is trying to sabotage the DM's Destiny account because he was simping and mad about the treatment of the druid, despite us having video footage proving that it was him. He keeps trying to drag us into it to vouch for him, and asking us to help find evidence that he had been framed. Meanwhile, we decide to give the campaign one last session to try to get some closure on our characters' arcs, at the very least. And he spends the entire time hyper-focusing on one other female player. I suppose I should have mentioned that Druid wasn't the first time that he had done that. This was the third or fourth time that he had all of his monsters and mechanics target one of the women at the table, even when they had to suffer disadvantage to do so, or there was a much more appetizing and logical target in play. It's super obvious to me that Lumpy Space Princess suffers from a habit that is destined to ruin any game that it finds itself in. Never deal with your out-of-game issues using in-game actions. We saw it with the Druid, we saw it with the Ranger, and now we're seeing it with all these women. I don't think that holding a grudge is good in any environment. But you especially don't want to use D&D as an environment to act out your revenge fantasies. That's why I cringe every time I see D&D stories being read about players perpetrating vigilante justice and owning a #thatguy with their clever wit and quirky personality. If you take a step back from those kinds of stories and try to view the OP from the perspective of all the other players, well, they kinda start to look a lot like Lumpy Space Princess here, don't they? Look, there's never a scenario where enacting a revenge plot in D&D is gonna make the game better. All it's gonna do is sour the mood for everyone and ruin any chances of you being invited to the next session. Which I'm willing to bet is a pretty damn prophetic statement concerning our friend Lumpy Space Princess here. We finally had enough, and politely inform him that we will no longer be playing at his table, nor will he be welcome at ours. As we're spreading the word about how and why we've lost a player and a DM within our circles, 2 of our female players, who did not know each other by the way, so I know it was legit, came forward saying that they're relieved because he had been, you might want to sit down for this one, yeah, it turns out he had been faking the terminal illness to try and coerce the female players into flying out to sleep with him before he died. And presumably, that's why he had been focusing his monsters on them so much, to punish them for rejecting him. If the destiny nonsense was the last straw, I don't even know what to call that one. We initiated Operation Fireball, and he has now been purged and mass exiled from basically all of his friend circles. His last words to me were, "You can kick me out, but your campaign's problems won't end with me. You'll see." I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to see, because we're having a blast now. I did bring his character back as an NPC briefly, because I thought the whole becoming the new death to exact revenge on the ranger would make an interesting arc. But the will of the dice eviscerated him before he even got a turn. It's oddly karmic. I didn't want it to turn into a poor taste former player curb stomp battle like he did in his own campaign, but the dice have spoken. End of story. Wow. Okay. I knew Lumpy Space Princess was a scumbag, but holy shit, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, faking a terminal illness to get women to f you. Oh, and let's not forget that part about how he put a brain tumor in the druid's head as a joke, while he was faking having a tumor himself. Wow. Just wow. As evidenced by how quickly his character got eviscerated at the end of this story, karma is real for this man. And he had better start working in soup kitchens every weekend for the rest of his life to build up that good karma, or else the next time he steps into the street, he's gonna get hit by a fucking bus. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.